Okay, welcome back to Edmondson's homework videos. Today we're going to look at the Spanish-American War, and I want you to look at the question at the top of the screen there. Was the Spanish-American War motivated more by realism or idealism? Now, this is going to be your assessment question next week. And what you really want to do is make sure you remember the definitions of both of them. You remember, realism is that relations with other countries should be guided by national self-interest. What's in it for us? What's in it for the United States? And idealism is a belief that values and ideals should influence how we relate with other countries. And we're talking about democracy, liberty, and rights. And that should be nothing new to you. So that's stuff we've covered before. Now, before we get into it, I want you to grab your notebook. And you need to create a T-chart on one full sheet. So just turn to the next blank page and create a T-chart. And on the left-hand side, label it realism. And on the right-hand side, label it idealism. You'll probably want to pause the video here to do that, but just as we go through these slides, you're going to have to jot down. There's 12 reasons that we fight the Spanish-American War, and you're going to have to categorize them in your T-chart, and that will be information you're responsible for on the assessment. So go ahead and pause this, create your T-chart, and we'll pick you back up on the next slide. Okay, so the first reason that we're going to fight a war against Spain was because of Spain's own imperialism. We're going to take the idea that we're actually going to free other people from Spanish rule. And because that would be the motivation, that reason is idealism, because we're trying to spread our values and ideals like liberty and democracy and rights to other people. So Spanish imperialism would be idealism. Here's just a kind of a quick map. The time we're talking about, remember, Spain used to have a really big empire, and that started to get peeled away in the 1800s. And by the time we're talking about, which is almost 1900s, 1898, really all Spain has left are the Philippines and Guam in the Pacific, and Puerto Rico and Cuba in the Caribbean Sea, or the Atlantic side of North America. So that's what we're dealing with here. That's what they have remaining. Next reason that we're going to fight this war is because Cuba has been fighting for their own independence. Starting in about the 1860s, about the time of our Civil War, Cubans began to rise up in protest and in revolution to rid themselves of Spain, and so they're fighting for their own independence. So if the United States joins in to help the Cubans get their independence, that too would be realism. I'm sorry, that too would be idealism. Idealism is what that would be, as we're trying to, again, spread democracy and rights and liberty to other people as well. Here's a kind of an interesting political cartoon from the time, and it shows a woman representing Cuba carrying their flag. You can see her cloak is labeled Cuba in a frying pan called Spanish misrule, and she's cooking over the fire of anarchy on Cuba. And this is going to help motivate the United States to get involved against Spain. And again, that's idealism, so that should be in your idealism column. Now, what Spain is going to do when the Cubans start really causing a lot of problems with their revolution, they're going to send a guy over to Cuba from Spain. His name is General Valerio Weyler. And he's going to be in charge. He's going to be appointed governor of Cuba, and he's going to be in charge of putting down the rebellion. And he's not a good dude. And he's going to actually he's going to earn the nickname Butcher because of the way he treats the local Cubans. And if the United States looks at General Weyler as a reason for getting involved in the Cuban Revolution, then that would be idealism, because we're helping somebody else. We're trying to give them liberty and rights and those kinds of things. So that would go in the idealism column. And here's a picture. Obviously, he's proud of his facial hair. He's proud of his medals. But his representation in the political cartoon of the time on the right-hand side is something different, right? He looks kind of like a monster, blood on his hands. He's got a knife that's got blood on it, and there are skulls in the background with Satan sitting on them, and there are some dead bodies underneath him. So clearly the American view of Valeriano Weyler is different than probably he or Spain considered him. And our final reason for this video is going to be reconcentration camps. easy to mistake with concentration camps, but these are reconcentration camps. And essentially what Butcher-Weiler does is he's going to take the entire population of Cuba and locate them into these camps. He's going to reconcentrate their population. The idea is if he can keep an eye on all of the Cubans, the ones that are not in these camps will then be labeled as the hostiles or the rebels, and he can go after them. He can round up the good Cubans and put them in these camps, and anybody who's not in a camp is essentially hostile, and he and his troops can go after them. This will also then keep the normal good Cubans that are in the camps from helping the rebels, helping those freedom fighters. So he's reconcentrating the population, okay? They're not the same as concentration camps, but they are, and here's why. If you were to look at these pictures without me telling you what they were, you would probably guess they were from Nazi Germany and from concentration camps. In reality, these are pictures of Cubans in reconcentration camps that were put in place by Butcher-Weiler. So again, if the United States does get involved in the Cuban independence fight because of this, this would be idealism, and I think you can see why. Because we're helping somebody else out. We're trying to give them democracy and rights and liberty, and really just kind of essentially their right to exist. So that'll be it for today's video. There'll be another one tomorrow and a third one on Friday.